Well friends, it's time to start looking at our 612. So there's a few things to talk about with this machine before we start actually taking it apart and looking at it. From memory, the first of the 600 series was the 610, and I believe that was launched in mid-1985 with the 612 electronic following shortly after. I think it was probably a couple of months later, 4 or 5 months later after 610, we got 612. So the Lux 600 series was the first mass-produced, and that's important, upright vacuum cleaner to have built-in tools. I say mass-produced because the original Dyson Clean Easy Rotork machine, the big pink one with all the tubes sort of coming out of it everywhere, that was launched in 1984. But there was only a limited production run of 500 of those machines, so you couldn't really call them a mass-produced product. But 600 was. And they are actually really cool cleaners, and it's hard to underestimate just how important, really, the 600 was, because it was the first mass-produced machine to have the built-in tools. It drove that whole need in the 80s for uprights to have a built-in hose, and the convenience of that was just far beyond anything anybody had ever seen previously. When you think about how uprights of that time, and going backwards as well into the 70s and the 60s, how you put the tools on them, it wasn't great. Certainly not on the Hoover machines. The pan converter style, where you put the pan underneath the brush roll, it's just awful, really. It was just not convenient for the user in any way. The Lux 500 series was better because you plugged the hose into the back and just twisted it, but you still didn't have your tools at hand. If you wanted to do the curtains of the sofa, you had to go to the cupboard to get the tools out, drag them all in, plug them into the machine, and then you could do it. And actually, what springs to mind when I think about that is the advert that Electrolux started to run in, I think, 1986 for the 600 series, which was entitled The Electrolux Vac with the Hose in the Back, which is really quite clever, actually. And obviously the success of the 600, and they sold bucket loads of them, I mean millions over the run of the machine's life. Yeah, and it was really quite something. In fact, the two most popular uprights I recall working on back in the early 90s were Turbopowers and 600 series machines. So yeah, they sold an absolute bucket load. From memory, 610 and 612 ran from 1985 to 1988, and then in late 88 they were replaced with the 614 and the 616, which was the second generation of the 600 series. I think they carried on until about 1990, when Electrolux introduced the Contour range, and that was effectively the replacement for the 600 series. So they didn't have as you could say, they had a decent life, a decent runtime. They were very, very popular back in the day, as I mentioned. You don't see them very often now, mainly because, much like other machines of the time, they weren't particularly high quality. They were better than some. I mean, especially if you compare it to Turbopower, you would say 600 is probably the higher quality machine, and actually that is a general theme when you look at Hoover versus Lux in the 80s. The Lux machines were a much higher quality. Hoover came back in 92 with the Turbopower 2, and I would say arguably that that is a better machine than what Electrolux were selling at the time. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that 600 wasn't without its faults. My goodness, it really did have a lot of faults. I mean, as you could say, it was a trailblazer of its time, so it wasn't ever going to be perfect straight off the line. The later machines were better than the earlier machines were, and there's a whole litany of problems that these cleaners had. Just interestingly, just whilst I think of it, there's a couple of ways you can tell an early 600 from a later 600, certainly for the 612, and that is that the early machines had a suction regulator valve here on the bent end, which is a very strange choice because this is an electronic machine, so you can electronically vary the power. Why would you want to reduce or regulate suction at the hose, which doesn't really make sense, but that was dropped quite rapidly. So if you find a 612 with the suction regulator on this bent end here, that is absolutely one to keep, because they are the early machines. The other way to tell an early from a late one is how the ratchet works. The early machines had what's known as a ratchet ring, and that was literally a metal ring about yay big that fitted on the body and actually worked as the ratchet. So it had notches in it, and you'd have like the upright position, and then you'd have position 1, and then obviously the final one as well. Oops, no, just close that drawer. Now those ratchet rings were horrendous. They were so thin, the metal was so thin that they would break for a pastime. And when that ring broke, you couldn't lift the cleaner up without the base just flopping down, and the handle would flop around as well, and it was really hard to use, especially with the hose. So yeah, that was a real problem, and Electrolux changed the design, I think late '86. So that's how to tell if you've got an early one as well. There won't be any left now. They were just horrendous. We used to sell them. We used to sell the rings in the shop that I worked at. We used to sell, it was probably on average one a day. It was mad. They used to sell them all the time because they just used to break and break and break. And sadly, I think that's probably why a lot of 600 series ended up in the bin, because people just got tired of just constantly buying these flipping ratchet rings to keep the machine upright. But yeah, Lux changed the moulding of the base of the body here to actually mould the ratchet stops into the body, and you kind of think to yourself, how can plastic be stronger than metal? But it actually is, because the metal of those ratchet rings was so crap. It was really crap, awful. Another problem that these machines had is that the chassis is not particularly strong. So you would tend to find that if the ends of the brush roll overheated, if the bearings got blocked up, and that they created a lot of heat, it would melt the plastic, and also the plastic's not very thick on the chassis. So when you're changing the belt, you're taking the brush roll in and out of the machine, it's wearing it down. When it's running, there's a lot of vibration on either end, and that ever so slowly, or not slowly in this case, wears through the plastic of the chassis. So you'd end up with the brush roll moving back and forth, and they used to make such a racket. It was awful. Another problem they had was these back wheels are really small, which didn't help with the early machines with their ratchet rings. When you push the machine back, you're very tempted when you're moving it from room to room to push it, and it rolls quite well on this thin carpet here on the workbench. But when you're pushing it over thick carpet, you're pushing down, and you're pushing down here, so the pressure is on the pivot point, which would also break the ratchet ring. But the wheels themselves are, and we'll see them when we take the chassis off, they are held in place by an axle on either side, and there's not a great deal of plastic between where the axle goes into the chassis with the wheel over it. So on either side of it, there's a little bit of plastic. There's like that much plastic, and of course the machine's rolling back and forth all the time over your carpet, and just that little tiny bit of play there is enough to over time just wear through the chassis plastic. And you will find these machines with their back wheels hanging off or back wheels missing, where they literally just fallen out. They had fallen out of the cleaner. The whole chassis on them is not great. It's not brilliant plastic. It's too thin to do what it needs to do with all the pressure on it, the pressure from the brush roll, the pressure from the wheels. It's not great. And if I turn the machine around to show you, so the airflow here, the hose is in constant use. The dirt comes through the hose, and it comes down at this point here. So you've got a right angle here, which is quite a severe angle on this piece of plastic moulding, and then you have immediately another right angle. So you've got two right angles in quite a small space. Now that would block up all the time. If you picked up anything larger than, it was usually anything that's larger than an inch. So anything larger than that, maybe inch and a half, it would get stuck here at this point. And so many times a machine would come in to be fixed, and the fault would be there's no suction. 9 times out of 10, it's because it was blocked at this point, and it was always this point. So to summarise, really, whilst 600 was extremely clever and an extremely good idea, the execution of it was not fantastic. But yeah, they sold an absolute bucket load of them. I do really like the 600 series. It's quite a handsome machine as well. It is of its time. You look at it and you go, that's an 80s cleaner. But if you compare it to Turbopower, which was 2 years earlier, that is really 80s. It has a lot of hard lines. There's barely one soft line on the whole Turbopower, but this is slightly better. And you have like rounded edges at the top here. The tip of the body is rounded. The handle is quite nicely rounded. There are sharp lines to it, but not as many as you would expect for a machine of the time. So that's enough waffle. That's enough of a history lesson for you. We need to plug this machine in and see if it works. Right, okay, here we go. I'm unwrapping the flex, ready to go in the socket. I have to say as well, I'm very happy to see that this is the original flex to this machine. 612 had blue flex, which is pretty cool. It's nice to have. Okay, here we go. Plug it in. Oh, okay, nothing yet. I'm going to press the button. Brace yourself. Oh. Well, we have life, that's good. It runs. It doesn't sound great. We're going to have to do some servicing to the motor on this one. I think we're going to need a new belt as well. Oh, good lord, yes, that is a very, very loose belt. The filters are going to have to be cleaned. I might have a dust bag for this model as well, so we'll put a new bag in it. We'll give it a clean. And yeah, I think we're on to a potential winner here. That's great. Good news. First thing we want to do is to take the handle off. I think it'll be easier to work on the machine with the handle off. So let's get rid of that first. Actually, we'll take the hose off as well. Be interested to see if the hose is okay, because they had a habit of splitting. So let's have a look. Yep, that's good, that end. Let's just take the hose out There we go. Let's have a look here. Yeah, that's quite surprising. That's good. That's good news. Nice that we have a fully working hose. So let's make a pile of bits. Let's take the tools out. Got the original blue tools with it, which is nice to see. Sadly, no all-purpose brush nozzle. 612 had a blue one, so it was actually made for the cleaner. We don't have it, which is a pity. And actually, the one I've got in my collection, I don't have the. Whoa! There goes a screw. I don't have the tool for that either. There we go. We take the handle off, and we will just put that over there. Pop this screw back in place, so we don't lose it. Okay, cool. Let's take a look inside the dust compartment. Okay, oh my goodness, look at that. It's got the original air freshener. Wow, that's amazing. It's probably green leaf. Oh, no, it just smells of mould. Oh God, okay, yeah, that's not very pleasant. Don't sniff those when you find them. Don't ever remember seeing this. This is really interesting. Cool. Okay. I think as well. Look here, the bag full indicator is just a little bit off center, so let's just pop that back in. There we go. It just clicks in place. There we go. So that's back in place. So yeah, we need to give this a good clean because it's a bit mucky. Put that on the pile. So here we go. Here's our bag. Press that. We have a dust bag. Mouldy. We've got some more spores here, which is not doing us any good. So we will pop that in the bin. Take the. Oh God. Oh God. Oh. Be careful here. I don't want to get this nasty muck everywhere. Keep the bag aside. I'm going to pop this in the bin. I really need to empty my bin. So yeah, here we go. Here's the inside of the machine. So it's all looking all right. Here's the pre-motor filter, which, yep, usual foam, just crumbles to nothing. There we go. As to be expected. So we'll have to find something. We'll probably make something to go over this. To make a pre-motor filter. Maybe something for using a HEPA filter. Give it an upgrade. Now we need to take off the exhaust filter. And the exhaust filter is behind this cover. And from memory, you go in underneath on these. You kind of like think, oh, I'll go in at the top, but you don't. You go in this way. Like so. There we go. That's that. Not too bad. Not too bad. A little bit of dirt, but in the grand scheme of things, not horrendous. Good. So that's pretty much all the ancillaries taken off. So now we can actually start taking the machine apart. Just noticed the brush roll here. I've obviously turned the machine over. This brush roll, I think, is a replacement because it's grey and the original ones would have been black. And this has got an awful lot of bristle life left on it. So yeah, I think that's been changed at some point. Right, step one is to remove the nozzle plate / base plate. There's quite a few screws here. So there we go, that's everything undone. These are all captive screws as well, so they don't come out, which is really useful. This is the original base plate because it's blue and the replacement ones were always black. Unfortunately, we have a broken screw here. So we're going to have to repair this, which is fine. We can do that with contact adhesive glue, and then we'll leave it overnight to set. I won't do that on camera because it's a bit boring to watch, but I will repair that. That's not a problem. We just need to keep this close at hand. Pop that on the pile. And then we have the chassis exposed. Let's give this a quick suck out. Yeah, I would place money on this being a replacement brush roll. Oh, come on. Ah, yeah, it is. And the reason I know that is because the original brush rolls had a little nut here. There was a nut at this point. And I'm not sure they were independent. See, the bearings will rotate independently. So I don't think there's a bar. No, there isn't. There isn't a bar on this. Yeah, that's cool. So this is actually a much better brush roll than the original one that was fitted to the machine. So this is good. This is good. It means the machine will last a lot longer, and it will also save the top moulding as well. Let's get this belt out. Actually, I'm not sure I can. This was another problem with the 600. The pulley is buried right up at the back here, and it's kind of hard to get to. There we go. Wow, that is a big old stretch belt there. That is, yeah, pretty much end of life. I think. Oh, I've got this one on the bench. Oh yeah, look, that'll do it. So that's our original one. That's the one I've just got on the bench there. So that will be perfect for it. So we'll keep that out because we're definitely going to need that. Next job is to remove the chassis. I haven't done one of these for many years, so you have to bear with me. I'm kind of doing this sort of by memory and sort of by luck. And there's a spring here, and I kind of have it in my head that you need to undo that spring. You need to release that spring from the bottom before you can take this section off. I think that's true. So let's do that now. It's a little tight spring. There we go. Just release that like so. Screwdrivers. And there are 4 screws from memory that hold this chassis in place. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's get those off. So with those 4 screws undone, you can now pull this chassis piece out like so, which exposes more of the base head. Now I'll just show you what I mean here about these wheels. So there's the wheel, there's the axle, which pokes through this side here. And if you look here, there's not much plastic there, and there. There isn't a great deal, and it's the same on this side. Oh, actually, do I need to? Just thought I don't actually need to release that spring. Oh, okay. I could have sworn I did. Hang on, let me put that back before it goes walkies. That's the pedal spring. You see it pulls the pedal back. I could have sworn you had to take those off. A top tip here is do not remove these wheels if you don't have to, because what you can do is you can get this mechanism backwards, so you end up with the height control mechanism pointing the wrong way. I've done that so many times, and also you've got these fiddly springs here as well. So if you can, keep this in place. I'm going to pop that on the pile. So now we're left with this bit here. So this is the motor hood. I'm just going to clean that out a little bit. Sorry, it's not the motor hood, it's the base hood. So now this will just come off like so, and then you can remove it. Yeah, okay, not too bad. Not too bad at all. It's in pretty good shape. Yeah, I mean it's got some marks on it and some gouges taken out of it, but then it is 32 years old. I'm 42 and I've got much more gouges in me than this. So yeah, it's pretty good. can just take out this bit, so this little air duct can go. And we are almost at the motor. Whilst we're here, I just want to show you this. So there's the moulding for the ratchet mechanism. As you can see, you've got the upright position one and then lie flat. And this is moulded into this piece of plastic. It's actually moulded into the ducting. So this will come out. So you could actually change this. If this broke, you just need to change this this air duct here. So you don't have to change all like the body parts, which is quite good. And on the earlier machines, this is where that ratchet ring would have sat. Now if we remove this cover, we can get to the motor. And now just pull this back. It's got a couple of tabs down here, and then take that away, and there we go, we're in. So that is our 600 series motor. Lovely. Looking a bit dirty and a bit manky, but we can save this. We can make it much better. And there you go. There's the air duct with the ratchet in it. And it just pops in there like so. Let's get this motor out. So we've got 3 wires on this because it's electronic. Normally the non-electronic machines will have 2 wires, but the electronic machines will have 3. And the suppressor on these is not on the motor, it's actually in the top of the body. So I will have a look at that, see what type of suppressor it is. We might need to take it out, we might not, but we shall find out shortly. And now let's free the motor from the body. And there it is. There we go. We're out. So now we can start looking at this bad boy and give it a service. So under this panel at the top of the body section is the loom where the 600 hides all of its goodies. So that's the module just there for the electronic power. There's the potentiometer, which actually varies the power, and then we have a whole load of wiring here as well. So what I'm going to do, and actually if you look there, that's the suppressor just hiding in there. So we want to take this out. Unfortunately we have to break this little pot here, not a pot, what's it called, a stand. To break the stand, take off this washer like so. Unfortunately they can't survive being taken off, so they have to die sadly, but never mind, it doesn't affect anything. And now we can see in here we can pull the suppressor out, because we definitely want to get rid of this. These are not usually the exploding type, but having said that, you never know with these things, you never ever know. So what we can do is we can just loosen this screw and remove that, pop that back in. Okay, and this one, we don't need that there. Do that, and it should be on a tag. Yes, it's on a tag for the switch, so pull that off there, if I can get to it. Slightly fiddly. Come on. Oh, actually, that might be a whole thing. Oh, there we go. It's come off. It's broken off. Oh, good. That's all right. Lovely. So there we go. That's our suppressor out. Yeah, so that can be yeeted straight into the bin. That's interesting. It's got December 87 on it. So that's when the suppressor was made. Oh, made in Yugoslavia. How funny. Huh. Made in Yugoslavia, sent to Luton, put in a vacuum cleaner. Okay. Bin. So now we just need to get everything back in place in here, which is quite simple. Pop that down like so. Find the panel. There's the panel, which goes that way around. Just a couple of little tabs to hold the bottom. And that is that. That's how easy it is to remove the suppressor. Good. No bang bangs for this one. Now we can start working on my favourite bit. We can have a look at the motor. Let's get that filter out of the way. So this is a pretty standard Electrolux motor of the time. It was found in virtually all of their upright vacuum cleaners, and actually some of their cylinder machines as well. If you chop the pulley off, or actually in the case of the, I think it's the 165, I think they actually had 500 series motors in them, complete with the pulley. It was just a really like long extended rubber mount rather, that actually went over the whole pulley to hold the motor in place. So they didn't bother taking the pulley off, they just made an upright motor and stuck it in a cylinder, which is quite funny. So let's start taking this apart. It's quite rusty around here, but it's just surface rust. It's not anything too bad. As I say, it's 32 years old, so yeah. It's surprisingly free now, actually. It feels much better. I think this should be quite good. When it's done, I think we should have a decent motor here. So and the disassembly procedure is exactly the same as the cylinder motors. They're really, really nice to work on, but as I've said previously, you can't change the bottom bearing on these. So it's like you gain on one hand, you lose on the other, which is a pity. Right, let's get this off. Where's my mallet? There we go. Give it a bang. Out we come. There we go. So because this is a upright motor, unlike the cylinder machines, we actually have a ball race bearing here at the top. So this is infinitely preferable to what the cylinders had with their sleeve bearings. Some cylinders I think did have ball race bearings at the top, like the more higher powered ones, but they were few and far between, unfortunately. Let's just clean this mess up down here. There we go, that's better. Right, so we've got our 3-in-1 oil. Lifesaver 3-in-1 oil. What would we do without this stuff? Honestly, I don't know. Just get that in. Funnily enough, the bottom bearing is actually looser than the top bearing. It certainly is now. I'm hoping we can get rid of that nasty squealing sound that we had when the machine was on. Yeah, if that's run for a while, it should settle down. Let's pop some in the top bearing. Oh yeah, that one's really good actually. That's lovely and free. Yeah, the bottom bearing is it's a bit grumbly, but it's not too bad. So what we used to do back in the day with these Lux motors, and because you can't take the armature out, we used to take grease, like proper car grease. We used to put the grease all the way around the bottom here, and then take a blowtorch to it, which sounds really extreme. But the blowtorch would melt the grease, and then the grease would melt into the bearing, and then when it had cooled down, the grease would go back to like its normal form. Now grease is much better than oil. This 3-in-1 oil it's fine to a point, but grease is much better. And that roaring sound, if you use grease on it, it wouldn't be as noticeable as it is now. But I have to say, I'm not really one for using blowtorches in the house. It's not it's not a sensible idea. And I don't have one. I could use the hot air heat gun but with that it's not as precise as a flame, and you could potentially end up melting all the plastic that's that forms part of the armature, and we really don't want that. Now we have to skim the commutator. Now, because it's 600, you'll see here that this extension has been welded onto the shaft of the motor. If this was a Lux 500 or a twin turbo, this wouldn't be here. It's a 600. I think this has been pressure fitted to the original pulley, and there's absolutely no way on God's green earth this would ever come off, ever. So we have to think of a different way in order to spin the motor so we can skim this com. You can't really do it when the motor's running with the field coil on, because there just isn't the space to get into these gaps. You can do it, but it's a little bit risky, and it's not really something I want to do. So I need to think of a different way to make this armature spin so I can do the skimming of the com. Time to ponder. Right, so my solution to this problem is to take the bench vac, make a seal on its hose, like so, put the hose against the 600 series fan, bottom part of the motor, and the airflow from the bench vac will go through the fans and spin up the armature. So here we go. Cross your fingers. There we are, one nicely skimmed commutator. And there's always a way around things if you use your big brain. Let's clean that off a little bit with the cloth. There we go, nicely done. So we have a nice clean com, looking pretty good. A little bit of dust left in it. Yeah, not bad. So let's put the motor back together and lock in these carbon brushes using this little screwdriver. Oh, you little devil. One just popped out. Oh, how annoying. Alright. This one wants to play hardball with us. It's going to be almost impossible to get this on camera for you. Sorry, guys. But this is one of those things that you need to, like, fully look at it, because it can be very tricky, and I don't want to break the brush or the spring. There we go. Push that back in, lock it into place. There we go. So that's our brushes locked. Good show. Pop the field back on. Press down. Probably give it a little tap. There we are. We take our braces. Do the usual. Get these back on. Oh, this motor doesn't like me. There we go. Come on. Back on you get. Oh, goodness, that's tight. That is tight. Oh, there we are. And we're locked in. Good. And we're spinning, which is always a bonus. Now we unlock the brushes. Click. Click. And we get the test lead out. We'll see if it runs. See how it sounds. Let's get all this rubbish out of the way. Here we go. Okay, we've got the test lead hooked up here, so let's lie this motor down. Actually, we'll probably turn it that way, I think. We turn it that way, it's slightly easier to hold than a cylinder motor. Hopefully you can see the commutator, yes, that you can. Just make sure nothing's touching, and let's give it a go. Well, that sounds much better. Yeah, that's really good. That's come up really nicely. Good, good. We've saved the motor. Lovely, lovely. Yeah. So this is all good. Yeah, ready to go back into the body. Okie dokie. Let's get this motor back in. So let's put the seals on, the mounts rather. It's a bit crusty, that top mount, but it's okay. It'll survive. Actually, I think we just want to pop a little bit of oil on there just to help that slip into place. Just give that a bit of a lubrication. That'll help it survive as well, actually. Don't want to get any on the pulley, because the belt will slip if we do. My finger. Got an oily finger. So get those out of the way. Okay. Bit in. Of course, you can't see anything. Oh, you idiot. See? It's been a while. It's been a while. This bit comes out, so you can actually just like lower it in like that. There we go. Oh, that's much easier. Thank you, Electrolux. There we go. Oh, that's better. Yeah, that's nice and easy. Good, good, good. And we just pop these wires back on. And in this instance now, the white wire is not actually doing anything, but just to keep it neat, we'll leave it there. It's not harming anyone. Because we took out the suppressor, this is not actually needed, but yeah, we'll yeah, leave it there. Leave it alone. Sort out the routing of the wire, that's correct. There we go. So now we can get our cover, pop the cover on. Is that going all right? Yes, that's good. That's good. We've got to be conscious of the suction seal here. And if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. So just be careful of that. There we go, motor back in place. I think what we'll do is, once we've got the machine in this position, we'll just plug it in and make sure it still works, because we don't want to put that hood and chassis assembly back on if we've got a problem. So let's just plug it in. That's fine, that's good. It's working much better, certainly sounding better. So now we need to get all the chassis back on. I think we're about halfway there, so we're doing really well. So let's rebuild the base. So first thing to go back on is the air duct. That needs to go there. Then we get the hood. And pop the hood in like so. Got to get the air duct lined up correctly. I think it's like that. Yeah, there we go. That's good. That's good. So that's in. Now we take the chassis. I'm just going to clean this off a little bit because there's some dirt and filth on it. Just give me 2 secs. And we've kept the wheels in so we know which way around they go. And let's get this in. Just gently lower it into place like so. Don't force it, whatever you do. Do not force this piece of plastic. There we go. That's in. Yep, the ratchet activates, so that's good. Now we do the screws up. lovely. Brush roll next. Let's get the belt in. Oh, this is so awkward. This is so awkward. There we are. Imagine doing that if you were in your 80s. Oh, God, honestly. Brush roll back in. I'm just going to run it a sec. I just want to see if the brush roll's okay, because we might need to service it. I don't think we do, but we might do. But let's turn it on. Let's have a listen. But because this is a replacement, I suspect it's okay. That's really good, actually. That's quiet as a mouse. Slight belt drift, ever so slight. Yeah, I know what. Yeah, because the belts always want to run on the highest point, and the highest point of the pulley is the big bit. But I think that should be okay now. Let's try again. Yeah, there we go. That's fine. The belt had just drifted over, so it was riding on the end of the pulley rather than in the middle of it, which is what they tend to do. But yeah, okay. So that's good. That's all good. I do need to repair the screw here, so I'm going to do that off camera because it's just a question of gluing and melting some plastic. So it's not very interesting. But I'll do that now, and once that's done, I'll come back and carry on putting the machine back together. Okay, I think that's probably a good point to call time on part one of this video. So I've glued up the chassis there, sorry, the nozzle cover plate. This is incredibly strong glue and it will hold that really nicely. Luckily this isn't a particularly bad pressure point on the nozzle plate, so it should be okay. I noticed a couple of the other posts are starting to go, but it's old plastic. It's 32 years old. This is the original base, so yeah, it's not going to be perfect, but it should be okay, and yeah, should be savable. I mean, it's in remarkably good nick actually for its age and what it's been doing. I can't really moan too much. These are very, very obsolete now. There's no way on earth you would ever get a new one. So it's only like, yeah, parts machines. That's it. So thank you very much for watching part one. I'll see you again in part two. In part two we will finish putting the machine together and we'll give it a clean, and I think we'll take it into the lounge and give it a run as well. So yeah, thanks ever so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. Always love to hear from you. It helps me out massively with the channel. Hope you've enjoyed part one, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.